Your media, where you are. Show you the chemistry of life through food that goes from the ground to the body.
Usually, when we switch to a plant-based diet or vegan diet, people would do it for reasons related to spirituality, reasons related to your health and wellness, and reasons are related to animal cruelty. But in the bigger scheme of things, a subject that we really touch on is the impact of animal-based animal agriculture and its impact on climate change. So today we're going to talk about that specifically. We'll be focusing on that and talking about the actual impact on animal agriculture on a plant-based animal agriculture on climate change. Our our guest today is Donovan Will from ProVeg South Africa. Donovan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great stuff, great stuff. So Donovan, as I've introduced the topic, so today we actually going to focus mainly on the impact of mass animal agriculture on climate change. You know, the whole biodiversity. I mean, we know that we have a planet that we actually are busy destroying and that we must take care of. You know, we talk about a future, and we forget that that future means nothing if our planet is in tatters. You know.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's why we've got this amazing new campaign. ProVeg International has it, and I'll speak a little bit more about ProVeg and what we do later. But
Okay.
we're really just trying to get this message out. You know, animal agriculture counts for 14.5% of total greenhouse gases, and no
Sure.
one's talking about it at a policy level. You know,
Yeah.
everyone's talking about fossil fuels. You know, we're talking about going electric with our cars. We're asking people to shower for shorter to save electricity. But why aren't we talking about one of the things that we can change the quickest and the easiest? And you know, telling people they can't fly or don't ship stuff around the world, those have huge logistical problems with them. But if you say
Yeah.
to someone, you know, let's eat a couple of less steaks a week, that can make a huge difference. And
No,
it
for
doesn't
sure.
have to be a 10 or 20-year shift.
No, definitely, definitely. Just before we get to that, Donovan, uh, I know you with ProVeg, but one thing I need to mention, I must also brag about the fact that you are a triathlete, and I'm glad that you've not died of protein deficiency and iron deficiency because you are on this diet that is nutrient deficient. As a triathlete myself, I've heard the stories about no, you need to eat animal food, you need animal protein, you need all of that because it fuels you up. And I mean, we are actually doing this and getting into crazy endurance feats on a plant-based diet, and that is actually amazing. Probably a topic for another day, but it's very important for people to actually know that there are people out there who get onto these crazy endurance feats like we do. I mean, I just in this previous weekend, I did a triathlon double ultra sprint, and on a plant-based
You didn't
diet.
die. You didn't die.
No, I'm still alive. I'm still alive, and I doubt there's ever been a plant-based athlete who has ended up in hospital for protein deficiency,
Yeah.
for lacking nutrients and having all the sorts of illnesses that are chronic that are today actually contributing to a lot of premature fatalities. But
Yeah.
yeah, topic for another day. But who is Donovan Will?
Yeah. Well,
and
actually,
and and how did Donovan become vegan? Was Donovan born vegan, or is this did veganism become part of your life progression, and it's something that you gravitated towards in the latter years of your life?
yeah, so I think that's a great question, and I'm gonna comment on the triathlon stuff while I answer the question. And
Okay,
it's,
perfect.
you know, it isn't it should be included in the conversation because a lot of people
Okay,
think it's theoretical. You know, people think that it's this theory that we should eat less meat, but we don't really know what's going to happen if we do. But the research shows that we can be super healthy, not just healthy, but we can be healthier, and we can perform very well at elite level, and we can do this endurance stuff. So you're talking to me now. We'll talk mainly about the environment, but I think next year, you can have me back after you and I both go run 100-miler or something. I think we should
Perfect.
really set the standard. You do your half Ironman at the end of the year, and then next year we do a big challenge. So I was about 7 years ago. I was quite unhealthy. I was 105 kilograms.
Sure.
I'd had bronchitis 5 times in about 14 months. And I thought a lot of it's got to do with stress. Maybe I was in a corporate job that I didn't enjoy that much, so I quit my job, try to find things that were more enjoyable. And one of the things that I came across was this plant-based diet. And I was never someone who thought I would go vegan. I was not I'm not the typical kind of person that you would imagine would be vegan. I'm that like boy-chi jock kind of mainstream rugby playing.
Yeah.
I listen to Coldplay. I'm mainstream, and I didn't want to be vegan. And I was that guy who would go to a breakfast buffet and just eat bacon and chipolata sausages and maybe a little bit of scrambled egg. And at Bry's, it was only chops and sausages and some potato. And so when I started seeing some of this information originally for health reasons, I was thinking, okay, I want to start running again. I ran quite a lot as a youngster when I was in primary school, and I played rugby and I played a lot of sport at varsity. And I fueled that sport with the average South African diet, a lot of meat, a lot of eggs, a lot of cheese, and I felt fine doing that. So I always thought, like, you have to have protein, like you were saying earlier.
Yeah.
And so I started looking into it, and I actually came across some really cool books, like this one. If you can see,
Yes.
Finding
That's by
Ultra
Rich Roll,
Rich Roll.
Love
I've
it.
also
Yeah.
got Born to Run and Eat and Run with Scott Jurek. And I started seeing
Scott is
stuff
amazing.
that, like,
yeah.
these athletes are performing, and again, there's the studies into weight loss, and I thought, let's try a little bit and see how it goes, just to maybe lose a bit of weight and what happens. And I remember the very first day I went and I was meeting a friend from varsity for lunch. She invited me to this place in Tableview, and we sat down, and we were chatting, and then just before we were about to order, the waiter brought the menus, and she said, "Oh, what do you want?" And I was like, "Well, I'm trying to do this vegan thing." And she looked at me, and she looked confused, and I said, and she said, "There's not anything vegan here." And so I looked at the menu, and there wasn't a single thing on the menu that was vegan, other than a plate of chips. And I was trying to be healthy, so I didn't want the chips. So I, like, not knowing what to do, I just ordered the fish, thinking that's the best option. And I thought, this is actually really difficult.
Yeah.
And then some time went by. I adding more vegetables to my diet. And then at some point, I saw this post online from a friend of mine from varsity, and they were protesting a bacon festival.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay.
You can imagine for me, a meat lover, I love my bacon, or at that stage. And I thought, sure, that's not really the place to do it. And, how would I respond? And I thought about it, and then I was like, well, maybe they have a point, if they don't want to eat pigs, it's I can imagine if you don't eat pigs, seeing other people eat pigs would be disturbing. And I thought, why do I eat pigs? And I went, well, I eat pigs because I need meat, And I wanted to reply to her post, because she asked for feedback, and I thought, okay, let's just tell her that, first of all, we need to eat animals because health reasons, and then second of all, it's not a moral baseline. You can't come and tell us what to do. If you want to be vegan, well done, that's cool for you. And I started writing a response to her about why being vegan is not that important and why we need to eat meat. And I wanted the response to be good, so I did some research. And as I did the research, I found out, wow, I'm just wrong. There are health benefits, environmental benefits, there's ethical benefits, there's ethical benefits for the humans who are working in slaughterhouses. There's ethical benefits from the point of view of how much food we can produce in the same amount of land. And I replied to her and I said, give me some more information. And she suggested I do what they had at the time, the Cape Town Vegan Challenge. So at that stage, it was 21 days trying to be vegan. I thought, let's do this.
Yeah.
I did it, and on day 10, I discovered the Fry's family food chicken burger and the nuggets, and literally from that day, I never looked back, because I found these meat replacements that could mimic the taste of a chicken burger or a nugget. And then fast forward, I landed up getting a job at Fry's because I was so passionate about their products and the way that these things could change the world. And then through the job at Fry's, I met the people who founded ProVeg. So that's where I am. And ProVeg is really just an organization that's trying to move the food system away from animal-centered towards plant-centered, and that's for environmental reasons, health reasons,
Yes.
the animals, ethics, and also for taste. People don't realize how good the food can taste.
No, for sure. I mean, uh, before I went plant-based slash vegan, I had actually come across the fries product. I remember I bought it at Pick and Pay. This was in 2014, and I had the stuff in the fridge for literally 2 days. It was I molded it in literally in 2 days, and it felt great. I mean, it's I didn't understand what it was about. Well, I knew about vegetarians, and I knew that they've got alternative meat options, but this is actually specifically for vegans, and I mean, I for one, I loved it. I enjoyed it, and I had no issues eating it. Because sometimes they say no, these are highly processed foods, and truth of the matter is South Africa actually ranks amongst the top nations when it comes to the quality of the food. It's just that people do not understand this part, and strange enough, we still have a lot of South Africans who've got crazy chronic ailments, and I mean, I think we rank amongst the highest in the world when it comes to this.
We're the highest in Africa for sure for heart disease and diabetes.
Now, for sure. I mean, and we attribute that to what we eat daily.
Yeah.
Yeah, great stuff. So just touch a bit on Pro Veg,
Yeah, so
just briefly.
our head office is in Germany. We have offices in Spain, Poland, Czech Republic, I'm gone blank, America, and we're
Yeah,
doing some work in China. We don't have an office there, but we are doing some work there, um, and obviously South Africa. And we're really excited about not just telling people the reasons that plant-based diets may have benefits, but really educating people on how to do it, and educating the food system, educating
yeah,
the restaurants and the food chains and the retailers, and saying to them, look, people already do want these products. Some people don't want to go vegan, but they do want healthier products. They want more sustainable
mm,
products. They want products that really have fresh ingredients. So when we're talking about these fries burgers, the Beyond Burger or whatever, we're not saying replace all of your food with that. We're saying if you want to eat a beef burger, choose a beef burger that's made with plants. And I know that sounds
yeah,
crazy, but if you go try the Beyond Meat burger, you won't know the difference. And that's not just me saying it as a vegan and who used to love meat. I have not met a single meat lover, and I have a lot of friends who still love meat. And when I take them to Hudson's and they have the Beyond Meat burger, or on the green side has this amazing chicken fillets, or vegan chicken fillets, they're amazed. And now I know when they go out, and now ProVeg has just done some work with Burger King. They now have vegan options, a vegan royale. They have a plant-based Whopper that they're working on getting to be vegan.
mm,
I mean, to me, it's close enough. We can't certify that it's vegan because it's cooked on the same grill as the meat. So a lot of people, especially for vegan, especially for religious reasons, people don't want the meat to touch. But for me, if my veggie burger touches the meat, it doesn't change it from a health point of view. Really, it doesn't change it from an environmental point of view. And I'm not asking for more animals to be killed, so that doesn't really bother me. And it's just becoming easier and easier and easier. 7 years ago, when I went vegan, we had some options. Spur had a fries burger. Steers had a burger. There's some
yeah,
controversy about whether the rolls are vegan, but there weren't a lot of options. And now when if you go to Sea Point Spa, and I'm sure the spas in Joburg that are just as good, you'll see massive ranges. And all of the big retailers have a few ranges. I mean, there's Pick and Pay, ShopRite, Checkers, all of them have it. And Woolworths has a really big range as well. So it's no longer this like niche thing that no one knows about. There's no reason not to know about it. And when we now talk about the environmental side and we talk about climate change, if you don't know about climate change and you don't know about vegan food, that's fantastic if you don't know about now. But as soon as you hear someone say those two things in the same sentence, you don't have to go full vegan, but go, if one of the biggest things I can do to reduce my carbon footprint is to eat more plant-based, and there's all these new plant-based products I haven't tried, surely the least I can do is just go try them, see what these guys are talking about. Maybe Mawethu and Don are absolutely crazy and the taste buds died like 5 years ago, and this stuff's terrible, but just go try it. And also
yeah,
just a caveat on that, like, don't expect every single product to taste the same. Just like when I was a meat eater, not every piece of meat tasted the same, and sometimes people don't cook it very well. So if you have one veggie burger that doesn't taste good, that they're not all the same. And again, when I talk about the Beyond Meats, that's not the traditional veggie burger, like a whole lot of veggies or lentils like mashed together and fried. That's a veggie burger. I'm talking about a meat burger that's made from plants, and that's obviously if you're a meat lover, that's what you'll enjoy. Obviously, a lot of people like the veggie burgers. I love a falafel every now and again. Outcast Falafel makes these falafel powders that you can just add water, and you can get that at Spar. You can get it online at Faithful to Nature, and I love that. And there's a place for that. And I probably eat a lot less fries now than I used to, not because I have any problem with it. I still think it's a fantastic product, but I've just learned to enjoy more whole foods just as much. So, people look at me and go, oh, I wish I could be more like you. I wish I could enjoy vegetables. I wish I could enjoy lentils. I wish I could enjoy like snacking on nuts and seeds instead of sweets. And I go, fast forward 7 years ago, and I was no different to everyone else. I was eating steers daily. I was eating chocolates. I was eating sweets. I would stop off and get a Red Bull and a Coke on the way home from work because I was so tired. I was no different to the average person, but we must remember all of our taste buds are acquired. I mean, our taste buds change over time.
Yeah.
You can train if you're positive about it and you think, oh, let's look for the things in here. And again, take it easy, take it slow, take it at the pace that you're comfortable with. And we can do huge things.
Great stuff. Now here's the thing. About 5 years ago, they said we have about 60 years left of the Earth's land. Now, and a great part of that can be attributed to animal agriculture, mass animal agriculture. Now, anthropologists have said that with humans growing over time, over years, there's 7 billion of us, the demand was greater. So I think that is a historical fact, but it is not a historical fact that Homo sapiens have throughout all these years been consuming meat the way they do. Typically, if you go to a family in China, a 500-gram steak is shared amongst a family of 8. They cut it to pieces in a family of 8. Whereas with other families, it could be each person eating that portion of steak daily. Well, that's with people who have got resources to eat meat every day. Now, what happens then after 60 years? And by the way, with the scientific revolution that is underway, we could be talking less than 60 years, because we're not just now losing in forest to animal agriculture only. People are building industries and big factories to build huge machineries, for your bioengineering and artificial intelligence. I mean, we are here now. I mean, we're in the industrial revolution phase of humanity, of humankind. But we still have this problem of animal agriculture, where 45% of the Earth's land is used for animal agriculture. And only 7% of Earth's land is used for production of veggies and fruits that are consumed by humans. Now, we've got a problem here. We are faced with a problem. We actually we're going to have a humanitarian crisis. We talk about a future. What will then happen? Okay, let me rephrase it. Human beings seem to be unconscious of that fact. They seem to not care. They don't understand that what is on their plate tonight has got a direct impact of what happens 60 years from now.
Yeah, and I think it's, I don't want to be one of those people who tries to predict the future. I'm by no means a scientist who can do that, but the scientists are saying that we're in a problem zone. Yeah, and country leaders are getting together at COP26 now, and they're talking about this. They're talking about how do we reduce our carbon emissions, how do we stop what we've been doing, but they're not talking about animal agriculture. And when it comes to land use, it's the same conversation. We hear people all the time talking about overpopulation. There's 7 billion humans on the planet, and that's a lot of people, and people need resources. But if you think of how many animals there are, we're slaughtering hundreds of billions of animals a year. Where do they live? What pollution are they causing? You think we cause pollution. We have sewage that goes out. Think about how much more is produced by cows, and we've got this situation where we're producing more and more and more and more animals just to feed people, when we could feed the whole planet right now easily on a plant-based diet. And the biggest problem is, around the world, we see in the Western world, people eat tons of meat, and we can talk about from a health point of view. Even in South Africa, the government, the Department of Health recommends way less meat than we're eating at the moment. They're talking in the 250 grams a week or something like that. So when you're talking about your steak, half of that steak is the week's supply of meat, where we're eating on it daily. But in Africa and in Asia and in South America, a lot of parts of South America, people aren't eating that much meat. But as they get wealthier, and as they get access to it, the meat consumption is growing. And when we look at these Paris agreements and we look at trying to keep to that 2%, the reality is the consumption of meat is growing in some places in the world so quickly that if we don't do something about it, we are going to be, again, losing a lot of that land. And the Paris Agreement goals are not realistic. We can't reach them if we don't reduce the amount of gas coming from greenhouse gases coming from animal agriculture, and at least slow down the rate of the increase. And it's happening now in America and Europe. We're reaching what we call like peak meat just in those areas. People are getting to the maximum average amount, and it's starting to go down. And again, from an environmental point of view, if you're eating one or two meals a week with meat in it, you aren't the average. The average person in South Africa who can afford it is eating meat daily, and it's and the same thing with land. Most people, if they drive into a pristine area with trees and forest, or with grasslands, they look at that like, wow, this is beautiful. They don't think, oh, it looks so nice if we tore this down and put big factory farms here. But we don't see it happening. We don't see those 2 billion animals. We go to the shop and we see the thing in the shop and we think, we just buy it, and no one thinks about it. But when we look at what's going to happen in 60 years, if Elon Musk is right, we'll have some people living on Mars, and a lot of people, I think there's like 10% of people who really don't care, and they'll never care. Then there's 10% of people who are trying to do something good, and the 80% of people in the middle just look to our leaders. They look to governments to tell them what to do. If the government says it's okay, then it's okay. The government will solve this problem. The governments and scientists will solve this problem somehow. And maybe that's true. Now the scientists are saying that we're running out of time to solve the problem, and it's do you want to wait? Do you want to wait? And in 50 years' time, when you're talking to your grandkids, you're like, yeah, I got the warning. I listened to Mawethu and Don, and I looked at the science, and it sounded like, at least we should reduce, but I like bacon too much, so I just kept eating it. Do you want to be that person, or do you want to be the person who goes, well, let's give it a try. Let's see how hard it is. Let's try a falafel burger. Let's try a Beyond Meat burger. Let's go with the plant-based milks. The milk is exactly the same. It's a huge amount more resource to make dairy milk than plant-based milk. And people will say, oh, but there's no options. Last year, ProVeg for World Plant Milk Day, we tasted 80 different milk replacements available in South Africa. 80. Sure. And we were stunned at how many there were available. That's obviously over different types: oat milk, almond milk, cashew milk, macadamia milk, soy milk. Yeah. And some of them are more expensive. You've got brands like Good Hope Soy and the Ma, which are reasonable, and they're just a little bit more expensive than regular dairy. But if your main concern is price, then you're going to save a lot of money by making oat milk yourself. And I don't generally recommend making your own stuff. I go for convenience. But if your main concern is price, you shouldn't be buying milk at the shop. You can get the nutrients from a cheaper source. In South Africa, samp, beans, and spinach is a staple for hundreds of thousands or millions of people, and that's a vegan diet. So when people say, "Oh, veganism is too expensive," if you want to buy the very fancy stuff, and that's only going to come down when more people buy it. When we talk to food industry and we say, "Oh, can't you make the burger the same price as the beef burger?" And they say, "Well, we just need more people to buy it, and then one day we'll switch all of them across." If people buy it. The food industry is not there trying to make us fat, trying to kill the environment. The food industry is there giving us what's going to make them profitable. And that sounds terrible, and capitalism sounds terrible. But if your friend works in one of these companies and he says, you know, I'm not going to get paid a salary if this company goes bankrupt, you suddenly go, okay, well, that's reasonable that you might make those decisions. But if no one's buying the products, we've seen it over and over again. Companies producing more sustainable products, healthier products that require that are less involved with sort of animal rights issues or human rights issues as well, and people don't buy them. So you know we've got a lot of people who want to eat more sustainably, but they don't want to pay that little extra. But paying that little extra now over time will enable those industries to see that there's demand, will enable economies of scale. And again, we need to think about what's important to us. If the car you drive is way more important to you than the future of the planet or the future of sort of pristine forests and jungles, then you know, drive a fancy car and have a huge car payment every month, and then go and eat KFC, you know, or something super cheap. You know, that's your choice. But if you care about your health, if you care about the environment, if you don't want the world to just become a big factory, then think, well, maybe I could cut back somewhere else, and I could buy that burger that's £5 more expensive, you know, or I could go and buy the lentils. And you know, maybe people say, I don't know how to cook. You know, you've got YouTube. I see people who don't know how to do something, and then the next day they come and they can play the ukulele because they watched the YouTube tutorial, but then they want to tell me they can't cook. You know, it's just go and try, you know, and that's the message for us. And it's serious. And I've just got now to the point where some of my friends are saying to me, I read the IPCC report, and you know, it's no longer a maybe something bad's going to happen. If things keep going the way they're going now, it's a problem. And I know that I can't go and get someone to turn off the coal power plants. I can't get the big industries to stop polluting. You know, I can't affect any of this. I can't go and sit at COP and tell people what to do. ProVeg is going to be there. There's a lot of NGOs who are there trying to get this onto the agenda. And we've got a big campaign now called Diet Change, Not Climate Change. So if you go to www.dietchangenotclimatechange.com, you'll find it. And we've got a big fundraiser now for the South African version of that. We're going to be putting up billboards around the country. I think it's about 100 locations. We're going to have an ad running on TV. We're going to have a mural, and we're going to have a webinar with some of the policymakers, the South African policymakers, to talk about this. But again, we've got this fundraiser. We've got a campaign that's going to be worth about 800,000 Rand. We've got some cool partners on board who've given us tons of free media space. But we need 160,000 Rand to make it happen. So we've got this crowdfund on Thunder Fund. If you go to Thunder Fund and just search for diet change, not climate change, if you just search for diet or climate, you'll see it. And we're just asking the public to say, you know, if you care about the environment, come and help us, join us, eat a little bit less meat. And you know, I had a friend who messaged me last night, and he said, you know, Don, I just don't care enough, you know, but he has 1,000 Rand for all the beef I'm eating this year, you know. So at least he's going like, well, I'm not going to change what I do, but I'll support the message so that we can make it easier for everyone. And he was joking. He then messaged me back and he said, you know, I have been cutting back, and the 1,000 Rand is really because, you know, it's great work that you guys are doing. But you know, that's the thing. You can have that mentality. If you have the mentality, I really want bacon, then try and find another way to help at least. Don't just say I like bacon, so I'm not going to do anything else. If you love bacon and you eat bacon once or twice a week, that's fine. Eat your bacon once or twice a week. But on all the other days, try the vegan option, try the vegetarian option, try some plant-based milk, you know, and donate to the charities that are working in the space. It's 100% of that money is going to go to charity. I don't want to sound like a salesman now, but we're super excited about that. And we see it all the time. People saying, oh, climate change, I don't want to be in this conversation because there's nothing I can do about it. And we're giving people that option. We're giving people 3 times a day, you're going to have a meal, and you can decide the carbon footprint of that meal. And I know some people can't decide. A lot of kids have to eat what their parents give them. A lot of people don't have the financial means to choose what they eat. But let's be honest, most of the people who are watching this show now, they can choose lentils over chicken or beef next time. You know, and it is viable. And you know, the technical stuff we can talk. You know, I know you didn't want to talk about very technical stuff, but we can go and read the FAO report, the United Nations organization that looks at that, and we can read the IPCC report, and we can read we can read the science that shows how devastating the animal agriculture is on the world. And I know some people will then say, well, what about free range? What about the like, you know, the traditional old MacDonald had a farm and all the animals were happy. And you think, well, I've visited Farmer Angus and at Spear, and you know, if someone was going to eat a steak, and I know a lot of people who are plant-based or vegan would hate me for even saying this, but if you're going to eat a steak, there's just better to have it from a cow that lived outside than one that lived in a factory. Like I personally think that we shouldn't eat any animals for any reason because they're living beings. But if you're going to do that, and so that argument is like, you know, if that is your argument, where are you getting your meat? Because if you're going to Pick and Pay and you're going to Spur and you're going to Steers, that stuff's not coming from a free range farm. Like 99%. Okay, don't quote me on that, but 90-something% of the animals in this country are coming from factory farms, and so that's one issue. And then the second issue is, even if we did that, if we took all of the animals out of factory farms, the reason we have factory farms is because the traditional farming couldn't keep up with the demand. And where is that demand coming from? It's coming from us. It's coming from the people who go and buy meat. We can't blame the farmers. We can't blame the meat companies. We can't blame McDonald's. The only people we can blame is ourselves. Maybe we can blame some industries for some misleading advertising to tell us that we have to eat meat, or we have to drink dairy to get calcium or whatever, and convince people that they have to do that. Maybe you can blame them a little bit for that. But we still have the choice, and it's different now. You know, there's a lot of parallels between the plant-based movement and the anti-tobacco movement. The main difference between those two movements is in the 60s, it was very difficult for the public to get the right information. That information was in journals. The first medical journal that suggested that smoking might cause tumors in the lungs was in the late 1800s. It was 60 years before the 60s, before we started actually putting a microscope over smoking. But that information was in medical journals, and who goes and reads medical journals? Some of us do, but most people don't, and it's hard to find. Nowadays, you can go onto the internet, you can go onto ProVeg's website, and you don't have to take our word from it. Everything we've put there has got references to the science. And, there's the excuse that I'm too busy and I've got other stuff to do. That's fine, but the excuse can't be like, I tried to find the information, it wasn't there. I wanted to, but it wasn't possible. There was no one to help me. Everyone's a Google search away from ProVeg or from Veganuary or from our veggie challenge. That's another initiative we have. www.veggiechallenge.co.za. You can sign up. We'll give you a free a meal plan, a recipe for every single day of the month. For one month, you'll get a recipe every day, tips, information. There's a Facebook group where you can meet other people. It sounds strange to try and get on this journey, but the more people you meet doing it, and you start waking up to the realities of this world, that we actually do have some control of our legacy and what we are doing on the planet. We can't impact everyone. I don't judge anyone. You guys, people mustn't think that I'm trying to preach and tell them that they have to do this. I'm just saying this is an option. This is how I live, and I'm very glad that I'm doing it. And my only regret is that I didn't do it sooner. And I'm healthier. Yeah. I'm more vibrant. It's not you mentioned earlier, like chronic diseases like type 2 diabetes, cancer, hypertension, obesity. Those are all really big things, but there's also erectile dysfunction, there's Alzheimer's, more big things. But then there's the everyday things, the weight loss, the not having that slump at the end of the day. I love the data, so I have a glucometer and I test myself all the time just to see what's happening with my blood sugar levels. And my blood sugar levels are the whole day. I wake up in the morning, they're 4.1, 4.1, and 5.1. I eat food, it's 5.5. It's and then it maybe goes a little bit higher just straight after the meal, and then again, and it's that wasn't happening before I was plant-based. I'd eat a meal and I'd have a big spike, and then I'd have a big crash, and then I would eat another meal and I'd have a big spike and I'd have another crash. And from the health point of view, we live in this world where we've got this amazing technology. Someone can be in a car crash and they can break almost every bone in their body. They can puncture their lungs. They can rupture their spleen. They go to the surgeon, and these amazing doctors using modern medicine can stitch them up. And a year later, they're walking, and it's a miracle. And then we think, how can we do that? But something like diabetes or heart disease that's been around for years and years and years are the biggest killers in the world, or at least in the Western world, heart disease and diabetes are huge. How are we not solving this problem? And how are we've got more statin drugs, we've got more doctors, we've got more surgeries, we've got more bariatric surgeries, we've got more technology around better stents and stuff, but we're still getting more and more people dying of heart attacks. And you go, well, maybe it's lifestyle, and maybe we can solve it. And I have a good friend, Dr. Paul Palmer, and I don't want to steal his analogy, so I'll give him the credit. He says, if that guy who got in a car crash, you walked out of the hospital the day that the doctors fixed him, and then he got into another car crash. And at lunchtime, he got into another car crash. And then at dinner, he got into another car crash. And the next morning, he woke up and got into another car crash. Would the doctors be able to save him? And the answer is no, obviously not. So if our problem is heart disease, and the heart disease is being caused by what we're eating, or our problem is type 2 diabetes, or our problem is obesity, or our problem is, like any one of these lifestyle diseases, if our problem is that we're super tired, we go to the doctor and the doctor gives us some pills, we're not addressing the issue. And if every day we're basically putting our body through the nutritional equivalent of a car crash, we can't then hope that the doctors are going to save us. The doctors can help us with the symptoms. The doctors can slow it down. When we look at diabetes, the general doctor will tell you let's manage the symptoms. Let's keep your blood sugar in a range. You're type 2 diabetic. The only thing we can do is reduce your sugar intake. But that's not true. It's not the only thing we can do. We can also get your insulin receptors working better by getting rid of the intramyocellular lipids, the fat inside the muscle that's preventing the insulin from working. And again, there are doctors who are reversing type 2 diabetes. And some people say you can't reverse it. There's still some damage, but there are people who go in and their blood sugar levels are all over the place and they're too high and they need to take insulin or they need to take metformin. And then they go into plant-based diets, and over 6 months or a year, they're off their medication. And some of the studies are showing people completely off the medication in months or shorter. And people go, "Oh, Don, that's something that you saw on TV." I personally I've met people who took insulin for years, went on a plant-based diet. I know someone who's a good friend of mine's father is a butcher, and he had serious health problems. He was a type 2 diabetic, and he went plant-based. And it's he does not have diabetes anymore. So maybe he still has some of the damage caused by the diabetes, but he doesn't have diabetes anymore. So if anyone out there is a type 2 diabetic and your doctors are telling you the only thing you can do is continuously take drugs, it's because they're doctors and they studied medicine. And when you study medicine, you learn about how medicine works. And yes, that medication is amazing, especially if you've just been diagnosed. I'm not saying jump off your medication. I'm just saying there's lifestyle factors play a huge, huge role as well.
Yeah. And I think it's, in what you mentioned is that chronic ailments are a nutritional problem as a result of bad nutritional choices. And then people expect medicine to eradicate it. And what medicine does, it just treats, you don't eradicate it, because the problem is it started with the bad nutritional choices. And this is what we need to constantly seek to address, like mind what you eat. It's fork over knives. That's basically it. I always say to people, put the knife away and use the fork. So if you know what a fork is used for. So that's it. Now, quickly back to the issue of climate change. In fact, mass animal agriculture. Now, there is the people have done a great marketing job in selling the protein misconception. Protein is synonymous with meat. But what people do not know is that there are actually studies that have been done for years that show that you actually get 50% more protein from soybeans than animal products. And you only use about 1% of land space on Earth for the production of soybeans. And
So I don't know this. I don't know those exact numbers, but the point is that people think that you need. I remember very clearly at primary school learning, the food plate: protein, carbs, some veggies, dairy.
Yes, 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 yes,
And
yes.
no one ever asked, like, where does the gorilla get his protein from? Where does the rhino get his protein from? Where does the
The
elephant
strongest
get his
animals,
protein
yeah.
from? And then they say, but we've got canines and these little tiny little things, and we look at the hippopotamus's canines and they're this big, and you go, well, the reality is that we can get all of those things from plant-based sources, and again, from the environmental point of view, it takes a lot less resources. It takes less water, a lot less water. In the case of something like a beef burger, it can be up to like 90% less water. Same thing for greenhouse gas emissions. Same thing for land usage. Same thing for the amount of pollution being caused. Not we're talking about greenhouse gases, that's air pollution, but there's also the runoff, the nitrogen, the toxic runoff into our rivers and oceans. And it would be fantastic if all of the animal stuff that we don't really like is used to fertilize fields, but it's not. A lot of it is we're producing so much of it. It's not. It's not this case of like the cow manure fertilizes the field. That is true. Obviously, some fields are fertilized by cow manure, but a lot of that manure is landing up in rivers and in water systems. And if we look at the ocean dead zones, animal agriculture is the leading cause of ocean dead zones.
No, for sure.
And it's the leading cause of almost, it's at least a leading cause of almost every environmental ill there is. And it's, for us to, again, we have these amazing organizations working to save the environment, but how many of them are focusing on this? And then you go, why aren't they focusing on it? And it comes down to sponsorships. And this is the meat industry is a big industry. We still work with a lot of people in the meat industry. I have a lot of respect for a lot of people who work in the meat industry. They're not evil, terrible people. They're just they're doing their jobs. And I know that's a lot of people say, well, people can justify anything by doing their jobs, but the reality is that if you work in the meat industry, you're making something because someone else wants it, and we need to resolve that. So if you care about ocean dead zones, if you care, and again, it's interesting where we look at something like plastic. When we talk about mass agriculture, we've so far been really focusing on land, but when we look at the oceans, it's the same thing. There is no such thing as sustainable mass extraction of fish out of the ocean. It's not sustainable for us to be doing what we're doing, and scientists around the world agree that we're going to be depleting our oceans of fish soon, by 2050 or whatever. And we just don't see it. We think, when we think about fish, if we go and buy some tuna or whatever, we think of someone on the back of a boat with a line, the fisherman, the traditional fisherman. And again, I'm not saying that right now everyone who's a fisherman has to stop being a fisherman. It would be great if that was possible, but some people are doing this for subsistence. Some people have to fish to feed their families. I wish it wasn't the case, but the main culprits and the main thing that we as people who are going to the shop and buying stuff is, are we supporting these industries that are going out and pillaging the ocean? And people don't realize. People will go, well, I'll never eat a dolphin, but they don't realize that or a turtle, but when these huge fishes go and trawl and they just catch everything, and some of the stats say that up to 1/10 of what they catch is actually eaten by humans, and the rest of it's bycatch. And that stuff is, some of it's thrown back, a lot of it's thrown back and it's not alive anymore, and a lot of it is just ground up and fed to animals. And so I don't know if it's still true, but at one point when you ask the question, what's the biggest marine predator, who's eating the most fish, what species is eating the most fish, you would think, okay, sharks or whales or maybe humans, but the answer at one stage was beef. There was so much fish meal being put into animal food that most of the fish. So if you think that it's sustainable, go watch Seaspiracy. I think that's the other thing we should talk about very quickly is you mentioned Forks Over Knives. That's a good phrase, but that's the name of a very good documentary about the health impacts. There's Cowspiracy, which is exactly what we're talking about. Cowspiracy is probably one of the better ones. And then some people will discredit it and say some of the facts are a bit dodgy or a bit. Maybe some of them are off. Maybe it's maybe it's not 16%. Maybe it's 14%. Maybe it's not 50%. It's 30%. But what we know is they're still big numbers. If we focus on the exact number, we're missing the point. And a movie Game Changers. It's a James Cameron. It was the executive producer, I believe. He was. It follows some athletes, showing how athletes can perform at the top of their game on a plant-based diet. So. The information's out there. Don't take my word for it. I'm not an expert. Again, we haven't spoken technical stuff here, if people do want that information, they can reach out to ProVeg. I'm always, you can hear how much I like to talk. I'm always happy to answer questions. My team's happy to answer questions. And I just encourage people to try and think about what you're eating, you know. And again, I love seeing this plastic, the single-use plastic movement in South Africa. And if you saw what happened to straws, you know, straws just basically disappeared. And it's because people stopped saying to restaurants, don't give me a straw. The restaurants also benefited because the restaurant didn't have to buy the straw. So it's, you know, the restaurant's just doing whatever's best for them as well. But why are we focusing on straws, where most of the plastic in the ocean is actually fish nets, or at least most of it comes from fishing and not from straws. So plastic straws, you shouldn't be using plastic straws. But you know, if you're conscious, if you're the kind of person who likes to recycle, if you're the kind of person who likes to walk instead of driving a car for environmental reasons, if you're the kind of person who refuses the straw, who reuses plastic bags, or doesn't use plastic bags and buys sustainable bags, if you're the kind of person who looks for like the healthier option or the more sustainable option or the more ethical option, you know, it's a no-brainer. If you're walking into the shop going, which is the most ethical, humane meat to buy, it's the meat that's not made with animals. It's that obvious. If you're concerned about the oceans and the fish, and you want to save the fish, so you don't want to use a straw, if you really want to save the fish, like, stop eating them. That's the easiest way to stop fish from dying is to have humans not eat them. And again, people will say, oh, we need omega-3s, and it's all available. Just a quick note in case anyone is want to go full plant-based. The only supplement that we probably have to look at is vitamin B12. It's not particularly expensive. It takes years for it to be an issue. And again, a lot of non-vegans take vitamin B12 shots. Vitamin B deficiency is a thing there too. And if someone has vitamin B deficiency, the doctor doesn't tell them to go eat more steak. The doctor tells them to go get a vitamin B supplement. So, you know, there are a few other things like DHA, which is what omega-3 turns into. People aren't 100% sure yet. But what we know is that most people following an average diet in South Africa are not getting enough potassium. They're not getting enough fiber. Fiber is one of the most important things for us to be eating. And no one talks about that, you know. And if you're eating a high-fat, high-meat, high-animal product diet, none of that has fiber in it. You know, I'm still surprised that some people don't know that. Fiber comes from plants, and if you aren't eating a lot of plants, you're not getting fiber. So if you
that's another thing.
People come and say to me, "Oh, Don, I feel so constipated. You know, my digestive system doesn't work so well." And I go, "Well, how much fiber are you eating?" And they go, "I don't know." And then they say, where do you get your protein from? And I'm like, well, where do you get your fiber from? And if you're eating plant-based sources of protein, you're going to have fiber in there. If you're eating lentils or grains, or, I mean, all plant material has fiber in it. And so, you know, that's a big thing. And also a note quickly, if you do jump onto the plant-based train and you completely change your diet, your gut bacteria is going to change. Your enterotype is going to change. There's going to be a little adjustment period where you're going to feel some weird stuff happening in your stomach. Don't stress too much about that. You know, it's if you have serious problems, obviously speak to a dietitian or a doctor. But everyone that I personally know who's switched to a plant-based diet and done it properly, you know, I didn't have to see a dietitian. I didn't, you know, just eat plants from all different types of plant sources. You know, there's an amazing thing called Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen. Gives you all of the different things you should be eating every day. So nuts and seeds, beans and legumes, leafy greens, other vegetables, specifically berries, if you can, fruits. I can't remember the rest, but you know, this like get some sunlight, get some water, get some spices. And it's, you know, it's actually, if you think about our forefathers, if you think about the people who were running around scavenging in the forests, you know, they just ate what they could, and some days they'd eat some stuff, and some days and they would have a relatively varied diet. And it's amazing to think sometimes. For me, everyone thinks you're giving something up when you go plant-based, but my diet is way more varied now than it was before. Because before I would eat, you know, eat chicken, beef, or, you know, lamb, and now when I eat beans, there's, you know, in my kitchen right now, I've got 4 or 5 different types of beans. I've got 3 different types of lentils, and they taste different. And the less salt and fat I'm putting into my food, the more I'm tasting the difference in the flavor profiles, the more
Yeah.
different spices I'm using, and appreciating the different taste profiles. And I mean, discovering so much more. There are tens of thousands of species of plants that we can eat. And,
Yeah.
most of us choose a few species of animals and a few species of plants, and that's all we eat. There's people I know who eat like probably 15 different types of food. I mean, that's all they eat. They eat fish and chips, and then they eat roast veg and potatoes, and then they have a braai with maybe some garlic bread and potato salad. You look at what they're eating, and then cornflakes for breakfast every single morning, and
Yeah.
peanut butter sandwiches, and you go like, well, I've got, like, I'm not saying everyone should do this, but like I love my little superfood smoothies in the morning, and I could easily have 15 different ingredients just in my smoothie.
Yeah.
It's not that hard. I've got a whole lot of jars in front of me. I just take a spoon out of each of them. I throw some oats in there, some dates, and I've got whole grains. I've got fruits. I've got some leafy greens that you can't even taste. I've got berries. I've got most of all the different types of foods just in my breakfast, and then I can go the rest of the day and not stress too much about it. I can go maybe have a Burger King every now and again. I can go to someone's house and they give me something less healthy, and I've at least got all that nutrients in one meal. But so many people don't even think about the food that's out there. And I've got a friend who's recently gone plant-based, and for the first like 2 or 3 weeks, every time I said to her, "Oh, we're going to have this," she's like, "I've never had that before. I've never had celery. I've never had broccoli.
Yeah.
I've never had." I'm like, what have you been eating? And then once he had eaten all of the basics, then we start going on to tempeh and seitan and like slightly more exotic stuff that you don't have to eat. And then she's like, "Oh, I haven't tried this as well." And it was for me, I was almost jealous that like she got to go through this whole process of discovering all these new foods and being so excited about it. And I mean, I'm still doing it. There's still new foods that I'm trying. And again, it's if you cling on to what you've always had, you're not going to find the other amazing stuff out there.
No, great stuff. Yeah, indeed. Thank you. Actually love how you brought in the practical side of being vegan, and because you've actually just simplified it, because people usually say it's quite a pedantic, uh, uh, it's such a pedantic process that you undergo, because you have to mix this and that and mix this and that, and I mean, unfortunately, I mean, the food that we cook, with the exception of beans, everything is on average 15 minutes.
Yeah.
With the exception of
So
beans, I mean,
yeah, but
beans
on
take you
that,
longer.
everyone, if convenience and taking too much time is a big problem, then go into Mr. Delivery now and order some Burger King. If you want to be a bit healthier than that, next time you go to Pick and Pay, get a box of fries, meat-free schnitzels. Go home,
Yeah.
pop them in the toaster. You might have to pop them down again. It's as convenient, if not more convenient, than cooking chicken. It can cook from frozen. The shelf life is much longer. I know it sounds like an advert, but it isn't inconvenient. And for some of the products, the price isn't that different. And then if you want to be even healthier, I do not very rarely, very rarely do I soak my own beans. Lentils, I'm fine. That's pretty quick. But lentils out of a can, perfectly fine. Some people will be like, "Oh no, but it's not as healthy." If it's 5% less healthy, just eat an extra spoon of lentils and you've got that extra 5% of nutrients. Eat the healthiest kind of vegetables and food is the vegetables and the beans and the nuts and seeds that you will eat. So if you need to put a little bit of tomato sauce in it to make you eat a whole lot of vegetables, then the tomato sauce is not that bad. It's better doing that than just eating the tomato sauce with French fries. So people don't need to be a purist. It's again, Google it. Google 15-minute vegan recipes, and there's tons of them, and some people love it. And Leah Zedruda, who wrote the South African Vegan Cookbook, who I used to live with, she would spend hours cooking because she loved it. And sometimes I do that as well. And then if you want a quick meal, it would be my turn to cook, and I would just 15 minutes, and there's a lentil bolognese. And basically, in the time that it took me to cook the pasta, I've taken some lentils, I've taken a knorr cooking sauce, I've stuffed it in there, I've mixed it around, and it's done. It's super simple, and that's not an expensive meal. It's not the healthiest meal in the whole world, but it's definitely a lot healthier than most of the stuff that people are eating on a daily basis in South Africa.
No, great stuff. Thank you, Donovan, for that. Truly appreciate it. Just in closing, how do we then conscientize our society, communities about the importance of? I think people tend to not pay attention to objective realities like the planet. The planet is something that exists. The planet is something that we've got borrowed time on it. So the least we can do as Homo sapiens who are on the planet at the time is to take care of it. But we're busy destroying it. Uh, if you look at things like COVID, government's response to it has been great because there seems to be great coordination and conscientization of government and the communities for them to understand the severity of COVID. But there seems to be disinterest in probably the longest pandemic since the agricultural revolution, you know, of the Homo sapien, or rather history of humankind. How do we then change this? Do we cooperate this into environmental studies from elementary, from primary school schooling? Do we engage government to actually look at this thing as an urgent a subject that needs to be addressed because it definitely is. You guys are working on diet change initiative, but how do we become impactful as people who understand this problem and who are in the space? And in closing, how do we do
Yeah,
that?
so yeah. Just the first thing, just to talk about the pandemic, ProVeg International did write a report on food and pandemic and the link between pandemics and food. And
Yeah.
75% of all new infectious diseases are zoonosis. They come from animals. So one of the
Yes.
biggest problem is having. Sorry, I just need to plug my laptop in very quickly.
No worries.
Oh, there we go. Um, one of the one of the biggest problems is that these factory farms are breeding grounds for infectious diseases. So
Yeah.
just on that, and then on the second part on what we do, obviously we need to get the big levers to move. We need to get governments to move. We need to get education systems to acknowledge this stuff. And it really is. There's some great schools out there. Somerset College has a lot of this in their high school. I've seen some great work being done at school level and at university level. But people must realize that change happens wherever people are, wherever people are doing things.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people don't want to say anything, and they don't want to do anything. And the most pragmatic thing to do is to hopefully be an inspiration. I know you're an inspiration to a lot of people. Be an inspiration, and don't judge people. Don't
Yeah.
tell them what you think they should do. Just listen to them, hear where they're at. Ask questions in a honest, curious way, and if you can change your friends, if you have 10 friends, if you only have 10 friends, and you can get them to eat a little bit less meat and understand this concept and talk to their friends and family about it, and they can talk to 10 people, and they can talk to 10 people, if you're suddenly reaching millions of people, and you're suddenly reaching the whole world. And if you work in a big building and you can go talk to the restaurant manager and say, can we get some more plant-based options? Often they'll be like, oh, we don't even know what we're talking about. Get them to come and speak to ProVeg. We can help with that. When you go to your favorite restaurant and there isn't a vegan option, ask, is there anything you can make on here that's vegan? Can we see a vegan menu in a vegan option in the future? When you go to a conference, and just email before and say, can you make sure there's some vegan options, and go and have vegan options. And so that's the thing for me is, at a bigger scale, we need governments to listen. And that's why this diet change, not climate change campaign is so important. Again, go to the Thunder Fund campaign and donate. We're going to put that on billboards. We need to get the public to see it, because when the public sees it, they'll put pressure on the politicians. And unfortunately, at the moment, this isn't a popular thing for politicians, so no one wants to run their campaign on it. They want to run their campaign on what gets them votes. So we're trying very hard there, but we can't wait and rely on everyone else. We need to be working on solving, at least at a personal level, solving the problem. And people say, oh, well, how much difference can you make? But like I said, if you're having some influence on the 10 closest people around you, and they're having influence on people, and they're having influence people, it spreads very, very quickly. But if you're going to stick your head in the sand and go, oh, but bacon, and move on with your life as if nothing matters, you're perfectly welcome to do it. But to me, I don't know a single person who's become more involved in this, who who's eaten more plant-based, eaten more consciously, who's not happy that they did it. It's not a case of like, oh, we're sad now because we don't get to eat our bacon, or we know we're part of a solution. We know even if you didn't become healthier, you can eat slab chips, Coca-Cola, and Oreos all day, and you're eating a diet that's got no animal products in, so it's technically it's vegan. You're not going to be healthy. But most of the people that I know, they're healthier. It's amazing. There's not very often, when you spoke about drugs earlier, medicine for people, there's side effects. And so you go, well, what are the side effects of this option? The side effects of trying to change the food system to more plant-based for environmental reasons is that we're going to be healthier, that we're going to be able to feed more people, that we're going to try more different types of foods. All of the side effects are positive. So even if you're starting off with Green Mondays, meat-free Mondays in South Africa, there's Humane Society International Africa has a Green Monday campaign. You can look at their website. Some of the universities have it. If you're at university, maybe encourage your canteens to look into Green Mondays. I know UCT has it, Stellenbosch and Wits. I think at Wits, one of the canteens is basically fully plant-based on Mondays. And again, for me, Mondays maybe not enough, but it's a start. And I would encourage anyone who's currently not eating plant-based at all in a whole meal to start with meat-free Mondays or start with Green Mondays. Look it up. You'll see recipes on their website. You'll get tips. You'll see some celebrities that you probably know who are also maybe not 100% vegan, but vegetarian, or what we now the industry is calling flexitarian. It's probably where the biggest difference is being made. Most of the new plant-based options out there, most of the we're seeing more vegan options in restaurants. That's been driven by people who are not necessarily 100% vegan, but they're trying to be more conscious. They're trying to be, again, healthier, more sustainable, more ethical. And if everyone does that, if everyone just makes some small difference, and as much difference as they can make at the moment, suddenly there's this cascade, and it becomes cheaper, it becomes easier, it becomes more accessible, it becomes more acceptable socially. When the difference between now and when I went vegan, 7 years isn't that long in some ways, but in terms of like the understanding of it, if I sit on a plane and I sit next to a random person and I say I'm vegan, I would just say that obviously we have a discussion. Generally, they'll ask me what I do. I love wearing my Pro-Veg t-shirt, and I'll talk to them. Most people that I'm speaking to have some awareness and understanding. 7 years ago, that wasn't the case. So it's just that. It's like you don't have to choose right now. I'm going to go vegan or not. If you want to, it's possible. I did that. I was bacon and eggs for breakfast and a braai for lunch, and then plant-based challenge the next day, and I never looked back. But if you want to start with meat-free Mondays, if you want to start, some people. And one of the guys I was speaking about earlier who reversed, one of them hasn't fully reversed it, but he's drastically increased his insulin need. He basically does vegan weekdays. So he's vegan Monday to Friday, and on the weekend he just does whatever he wants. So it's you're cutting out 5 out of 7 days. That's a huge percentage. Yes. And he says what happens now is you would go to a braai on the weekend, and it used to be like, okay, let's see how much meat I can eat on the weekend. And now he gets to the braai and he goes, I'd actually rather just have a Beyond Meat burger, or I'd rather just have some tofu skewers. I'd rather just have a millie. People like and braais. We just did a braai day campaign recently, and on the Pro-Veg blog, there's I've written an article on like the meat lover's guide to a plant-based braai, because I thought that braais would be the hardest thing. I was so scared to go to a braai when I went vegan, because what are my friends going to say? What am I going to braai? And it's actually the easiest thing. My family every Sunday has a braai. They're not vegan, but the potato salad is vegan. They've just switched out the regular mayonnaise for Be-Well mayonnaise, which is the same price. I think it's actually a little bit cheaper, and it's better than the other ones. Same with the coleslaw. With the garlic bread, you get those garlic risen cook things from Spa. They're plant-based. They use margarine, and it's margarine bread and garlic. Millies on the braai, mushrooms on the braai, potatoes on the braai, onions on the braai. There's so many options that we're already eating with the meat. We just replace that meat with the Beyond Burger on the braai, or in Cape Town. If you're in Cape Town, you need to try Romeo and Vera, very very small up and coming company in Woodstock. They've got these chicken kebabs, and they've got drumsticks. They've got little chicken legs, and it's absolutely incredible, and they taste fantastic. And people just don't know about it. And when they try it, when I was at Fry's, one of the things that my favorite thing to do was nugget sampling. When I got to Fry's, I said we have to do nugget sampling. So in the time that I was there, it was over hundreds of thousands of over between 100 and 200,000 nuggets that I oversaw being handed out. And we would go to UCT and hand out nuggets to students. And the students, when they tried it, and they what's so special about these nuggets? Well, they taste nice. Yes, they taste great, but why are you handing them out? Well, there's no cholesterol, there's no antibiotics, there's no there's much less saturated fat, but also it's using 90% less land and greenhouse gases, and no chicken had to die. And you're with these big rugby jocks who otherwise would have been, not very impressed by eating vegan food. And they're like, wow, and they're getting their rugby teams and you guys have to try this. It's actually amazing. And curiosity, if you can get your friends and family and the people around you and the people at work and the people in the canteens curious about what's happening, curious about how it's benefiting you, curious about what it tastes like, curious about, what even goes into a vegan omelet. If they're curious, ask questions, they'll want to learn, they'll be excited. If you shame them and you tell them, you're a murderer if you eat meat or whatever, they're just going to not want to speak to you. And that's the same for not just for vegans, but everything else. If you tell someone they're a terrible person for driving instead of cycling, do you think they're going to listen to you about anything else with the environment? So it's all of these environmental things. And again, we definitely not saying that we shouldn't also be worrying about fossil fuels and trying to drive less and trying to get electric cars. But this is the easiest one for us to start with.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Donovan. I appreciate it, and there's definitely a lot more to talk about. Thank you. I'm actually quite positive that in the future there'll definitely be.
I'm going to follow your triathlon at the end of the year, and then I'm gonna get a hold of you, and we're gonna start training for 100 miler or something like that.
Great stuff. I'm all about those endurance challenges. That's what keeps me ticking.
Yeah. Any sponsors out there who want to sponsor me and Mawethu for a big 100 miler or
must come on board.
It's fuel us up. We'll wear your kit and I'm obviously joking, but we should do something like that. And it's we need to live our lives to the fullest. People think that we're making some sort of sacrifice, or we're living our best lives, and our best lives, we're able to do that and be environmentally friendly and be conscious about other things and, and inspire other people. So anyone who's not keen, that's fine. That's up to you. But if you are keen, I hope that some of the information that we gave is useful. And if we didn't give you enough information specifically about the climate issues, please go look at dietchange.climatechange. You can just Google it. It's very simple out there as well. So
great stuff. Thank you, Jonah. Thank you, Donovan. We honestly will definitely have to have a lot more of these topics. I truly appreciate
maybe we could talk about the ethical side or something for Veganuary in January. That's also great a topic that I think a lot of people misunderstand and think it's just a judgment on people, but it's really not. There's a lot of nuance to it as well.
Yeah, great stuff. Thanks, Don. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. All right. Thanks for your time.
Yes.
Thanks.
Bye.
Okay, cheers. Bye. Yeah, there was Donovan Wolf from ProVeg South Africa. I hope that was quite insightful. I hope you've learned a lot from that. This is Plant Power with Mawethu.
We put out what we put in. Plant Power with Mawethu will show you the chemistry of life through food that goes